You're locked into the Liberty Flames podcast, powered by Rogers Heating and Cooling, servicing Greater Lynchburg's HVAC and electrical needs. Schedule your service today at callrogers.com. Get ready for double coverage with Nick Pierce and Pat Kelly, the weekly podcast that takes you inside Flames football and around the nation before game day. Now, alongside former Flames All-Conference wide receiver Pat Kelly, here's your host, Nick Pierce.
Hey, what's going on, Flames Nation? Welcome back into the show. I'm Nick Pierce. He's Pat Kelly. Glad to have you along. Fall camp still going on for the Flames here this week. This is week 3 of fall camp, so you know it's probably starting to wear on those guys a little bit. We're back to talk about the first scrimmage, what's coming up here, what you should expect to find out after the second scrimmage this weekend. Also tell you a little bit about the Meet the Team event going on at Williams Stadium. All that, plus we'll take your questions from the mailbag and much more on the way here. We're just glad to have you along. Appreciate you taking some time out of your day or night or maybe your morning commute to tune us in here on the Liberty Flames podcast, powered by Rogers Heating and Cooling, servicing Greater Lynchburg's HVAC and electrical needs. You can schedule your service at callrogers.com. Of course, always hit that follow button, subscribe to the Liberty Flames podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us on the Liberty Flames YouTube channel. Hit the follow button or subscribe to the Liberty Flames YouTube channel. Get all of our great content sent directly to you. Get notifications when something new drops each day, each week. Flames Central podcast lives here. All of our press conferences with Coach Chadwell and the players, find it all on the Liberty Flames YouTube page. And, of course, the Liberty Flames mobile app as well. Download that today if you've not already done so. All right, I think I just cleared the bases, Pat. That's about all the homecoming or the house, not homecoming, what's the word? Housekeeping.
Housekeeping?
Yeah, housekeeping. I think I've got all that covered now. How are you, man?
I'm good. I cannot complain. You said it earlier. We're one day closer to the season kicking off. All kinds of fun college football news going around as well to kind of keep the headlines. So that's been fun to try and keep track of. But yeah, I'm good. I cannot complain.
Yeah, you're ramping up for your 5th year of eligibility, aren't you?
I sure am. I was doing some wind sprints with my my kids in the front yard the other day. Probably tweaked a hammy again, which was the problem with my whole career. But yeah, I mean, the news has been crazy, and I'm interested to see what the heck happens with all this.
Yeah, the most recent thing as of the time of this taping, and who knows what will happen between the time of this taping and when you're actually listening to this, but another court injunction has been granted to for NFL players now, affecting multiple NFL players for a 5th year of college football eligibility. And probably the silliest thing that I've seen so far out of this is there is an actual NFL running back, TJ Harden, who reportedly, according to On3, plans to enter the NCAA transfer portal now. He played at SMU and UCLA. The only thing I can say about this, Pat, is common sense is not too common anymore in politics and sports, pretty much anywhere you go. And really, this just feeds that narrative. I don't know where the line in the sand is going to be, but my goodness, we got guys trying to leave the NFL and go back to play college ball now.
It's pretty insane. We talk about NIL and all that stuff, how not a huge governing body. We talked about, it's the wild, wild west. Well, now it's getting even wilder. It's crazy to me that, I've said on the podcast before, I'm a big LSU fan, born in Louisiana. LSU has a guy that left. He currently plays for the Buccaneers. He had 2 sacks in his preseason game the other day, and with this ruling, he is technically now eligible to return to LSU, which I would be great with. But it's wild to think that guys are playing in preseason games and could then potentially go back and play collegiately.
Yeah, Jack Pyburn, is that right?
That's right. Florida transfer, came to LSU, kind of underwhelmed, but still, be great to have a guy who's been in an NFL camp. He's good enough, clearly, to be on an NFL roster. This stuff is crazy.
Well, and that's what you and I talked about last week when this came up. When we were talking about the previous injunction, I think in Colorado, and someone I think it maybe even asked the question: Are there any Flames players that could come back this year? A little different situation, to my knowledge. No one's actually in camp right now with an NFL team that has a fifth year of eligibility floating out there. This is different. These guys are in playing shape. That was the point we made last week, right? It's been several months. Even if you could, I don't know that it would really serve any purpose for the player or the team. This is completely different. I mean, if you can pluck a guy out of an NFL training camp, that's a free agent pickup for whatever college team you root for.
Yeah, I mean, things have gotten pretty crazy. I don't know if Flame fans saw it, but Brylan Green tweeted something yesterday, like, kind of the shaking hand emoji after the ruling came out, which, I mean, that would certainly that'd set some Flame fans off, having that talent back. But no, I mean, it is crazy to think of guys have moved on, right? Whether they're in the NFL or not, having now a chance to come back. Am I jealous? Maybe a little bit. But I mean, this is just, it's absurd.
Yeah, Brylan, I think he got a couple of mini camp invites, Kansas City and Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't think he's in camp anywhere right now. But it doesn't surprise me he would tweet something like that. I mean, Brylan's a pretty good character. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the next thing is going to be. Wes Durham, I think, tweeted something today about now we've hit the however he phrased it, that this is the boiling point or whatever. I don't know. I think there's another step to this. I mean, we could have teams making trades essentially, right? I mean, at some point, Oregon deals 2 running backs to the Cleveland Browns for a player to be named later. I don't know. Like, this is wild. Stuff that I never thought I would see, and clearly there's got to be some type of litigation, collective bargaining. Something has got to happen before we get back to any sense of normalcy. In the meantime, I think you're just going to continue to see stuff like this. But I don't know. Any final thoughts on that before we actually dive into Flames football here?
No, I don't think so. I mean, just wild times we're in, and season hasn't even started.
Yeah. We're just a few days away, though. A couple weeks. Next week is and again, we're taping this on August 20th. Next week is the last non-Flames game week. How excited does that make you?
Pretty fired up. And then when you couple that with the fact of who they're playing in that week 1, I mean, it just ramps it up that much more. I mean, there is a lot at stake early in the season for this Flames team. So, it's kind of got my blood boiling already.
Yeah, Liberty and JMU, September 5th, high noon, nationally televised game. 2 of, I think, 10 group of 6 teams in the country to receive votes in the top 25. We'll talk more about the top 25 poll a little bit later on. But like you said, there's just a lot. And then on top of that, you got the Commonwealth Cup, right? Or not the Commonwealth Cup, excuse me. What did we call it? The Battle for the Blue Ridge last year. Commonwealth Cup is Tech and UVA, not to get those two confused. But the Battle for the Blue Ridge, the trophy, that's up for grabs here with Liberty and JMU on September 5th. So there's a lot of in-state bragging rights. Like I said, you're looking at a team in JMU that was in the college football playoff last year. Liberty aspires to get back to that, right? After going 4-8 last year, 2-3 years removed now from a trip to the Fiesta Bowl. Flames trying to kind of get back to that national scene. And this is really, Pat, the only game on the schedule where they really have to, at least coming into this season, right? The only opportunity they really have to make a splash on the national scene when you look at the remainder of the schedule.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, you've got that game. A couple of weeks later, you've got Coastal, which, they may be okay.
May or may not be a big game, as far as that goes.
And what you're hoping for there is both teams are, say, undefeated, and then you've got that ESPN. I think it's a Thursday game, maybe.
Yep, Thursday night. National TV.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not a super, super strong schedule, so you do have to come out of the gates, firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, and we'll see what it looks like. We'll get into a little more of the JMU preview probably next week, and for sure the week after that once we get to game week. Billy Napier's JMU Dukes, what they look like this year. But what the Flames are dealing with right now, they're still in search of a quarterback, although the quarterback race has one less name in it. Ethan Houck, if you have not heard, the sophomore has moved to tight end, and that was as of the scrimmage last week. So A little bit surprising news there, Pat, but when you look at his frame, his 6'4", 205, 210 pounds, I mean, he's kind of got the body for it, and Coach Chadwell said he was kind of down on the depth chart as far as the quarterback race goes. Sounds like a young man that just wanted to find a way on the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about how can you add value. And, if it's me and I'm fourth or fifth on the depth chart and I'm probably not going to scratch the starting lineup all season, I'm looking for how can I get plugged in? Is it special teams? Is it a position shift? So I'm good with the move. And if you kind of look across the board, assuming he can put some weight on, he'd be one of your bigger tight ends, which is great. And then the other thing I would call out about this, I do think there could be an element of, we're thinking about the future here. When you look at Liberty's tight end list on roster right now, you've got 7 tight ends. And 1, 2, 3, 5 of them are either fifth-year seniors or seniors. So if you think about it from what you've got coming back, and then you factor in the transfer portal now, where say a guy doesn't play a whole lot, he's leaving the program. You could be pretty thin there going into next year. So to be able to get a guy plugged in really for an entire season, potentially practicing at tight end, playing at tight end, I think it could be kind of a forward-looking move by this staff as well.
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out, but so you're down to 4 guys now, right? And I think internally, and Coach Chadwell kind of said this as well, looking at the quarterback room, internally they kind of have an idea of their top 2 or 3. From what I've seen, you're still getting a lot of reps for, everybody. I think that it maybe skews one way on a couple of guys, but for the most part, I think I'm not sure, at least publicly, they haven't made it known how close they are. And this kind of goes back to what we said a couple of weeks ago. It feels like the staff will probably try to play this as close to the vest as they can up until game week or maybe even game day. But it seems like there's probably a little more of an idea after that first scrimmage, even if they're not laying it out there for us necessarily. But I think for certain after this week, you should have more of an idea who it's going to be. But, Deshaun Purdy, Ethan Vasco, how about Jakin Davis? I mean, Davis drew a lot of praise the other day, the true freshman, and he's a guy that I'll admit coming into this thing, Pat, I didn't really think would be that much of a factor, and that's nothing against Davis. It's just it's a really hard position to play for a true freshman, and it's especially hard nowadays when you've got so many older guys available via the transfer portal. It's hard to get reps anywhere as a freshman, much less at this position.
I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, but speaking personally, my first game experience at Liberty, we played against West Virginia, and I mentioned just how fast the bullets were flying going from senior in high school to now true freshman playing on the field. So to me, it's really impressive that he has been able to kind of turn some heads. He's been able to get some eyes on him as a freshman, especially at that position. I'm really interested to see how that unfolds. But yeah, I mean, good for him. I don't necessarily think he's not going to be the starter going into this year, my personal perspective there. But yeah, good for him to start to make a little bit of a push.
Yeah, I don't think you will either. But when you go and you look at Coach Chadwell's comments on him, said he's probably farther ahead than any freshman we've brought in at any point in my time coaching. Now, he didn't say freshman quarterback. He said any freshman. Mindset, attitude, self-belief, work ethic, professional mindset. He's in-laws with Bo Nix. His 2 brothers played Division I baseball. Did say that football's catching up with him a little bit, but then, the coaching staff's putting a lot on him too. But Chadwell said when his time comes, he's going to be a good one. I don't know when his time is going to come, but, I watch him in practice a little bit. He brings some energy, some poise, some confidence, a lot of the things that Coach is talking about there. And, I think that's pretty impressive that he's still got himself in the mix here at this point, 3 weeks into fall camp. We'll talk more about him a little bit later on. Some other news this week, though, looking not just quarterbacks, the running back room. You got 3 guys named to the Doak Walker watch list. Cam Davis, Florida State transfer, Kanye Udo, the transfer from Arizona State, and Peyton Jones, the transfer from Duke, all in their first year with the Flames, but all with experience. And Liberty is the only team in the country right now with 3 players on that Doak Walker Award watch list, which of course goes to the top running back in the country every year. I think that kind of speaks to the expectations, at least nationally. The perception is on this Flames offense and what they've got in the running back room. I think they're in a really good place.
I think you're right. And, we had the privilege of watching Quentin Cooley be so dominant for so long, crushing it between the tackles, multiple 1,000-yard seasons. I'm excited to see what this kind of trio of backs can do. I thought Liberty really clicked on all cylinders. Again, that Fiesta Bowl year when you had a guy that could go between the tackles, you had a guy that could kind of run around the edge. I'm excited. It's awesome to see, Cam Davis, former 4-star coming out of high school, number 3 running back in all of America. To have that talent there, to have a guy that played 30 games at Duke and Peyton Jones, that's significant. And then with Kanye Udo coming from Arizona State / Army, I think his last season at Army went over 1,100 yards, had I think double-digit touchdowns. So you're not getting guys that didn't have playing time, so that's why they came to Liberty. You're getting guys that were on the field and they were productive. If we could see some semblance of a Quentin Cooley type running game again, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah, for sure. And when you look at Kanye Udo, you mentioned the 1,100-yard season that he had at Army, 11-11 to be exact, averaged about 6.2 yards a carry. And I started digging a little bit on Cam Davis, just such a big dude, 5'10", 220 pounds, and fast. That's the other thing, too, is you wouldn't expect it, but he's got some breakaway speed. I heard Newland Isaac talking about that the other week, the running backs coach, and just how impressed they were with when he gets in open space, what he can do. Pat, I was looking at the numbers, kind of limited carries for him at Florida State. He had 51 carries in 24, just 8 carries last year. But a guy that averaged about 3.5 yards after contact. If you're averaging 3.5, 4 yards, he had 4 yards after contact last year. If you're averaging 3.5, 4 yards after contact, you're going to be a problem for a lot of teams. If he can do that over the course of a full season, and trust me, I think he's going to get his share of the workload this year.
Well, Nick, what that tells me, that 4 yards after contact, what that says is we have a physical runner, a guy who initiates, who wants to kind of deliver the boom to you. Those are the most fun running backs to watch. Those are the ones who wear on you over the course of a game in the second, in the third, in the fourth quarter. And for a Liberty team that likes to run the ball 40, 45 times a game, that could be a match made in heaven.
Yeah, and you talked about Quentin Cooley a minute ago. that's kind of who comes to mind for me, but, maybe a little faster than Q was, so that's going to be fun. Peyton Jones, a guy that, like you said, 30 games at Duke last 3 years. He's versatile. Like, they could use him in that B-back role. They can split him out in the slot, use him a little bit as the A-back, almost like an Aaron Bedgood type situation. We always reference him because of how good he was in that 23 season. And then you got guys like Jalen Coleman at the A-back spot as well, who averaged about 7 yards a carry last year. I really like this running back room, and we'll talk more about him a little later on, I think, when we get into the mailbag. But, for those 3 guys to be on the Doak Walker Award watch list, I thought that was some pretty welcomed news this week. Now, all that to say, going back to the scrimmage last weekend, defense dominated the day, and that was kind of the message from Coach Chadwell. Closed scrimmage, obviously, but, listening to Coach talk about it, the defense seems to be ahead of the offense, but that's not really that unexpected at this time of the year either. And when you've got guys that are familiar with the scheme, and you tell me, when you were in fall camp, how hard was it to execute an offense against guys that knew your tendencies and knew your playbook?
It's definitely tougher. And not to be corny or cliche with it, but like you do want your practices to be harder than the games. But, the defense, they don't necessarily, I don't want to say they don't have to prep quite as much as the offense, but the offense like use the offensive line as an example. They're having to be a little bit more reactionary to a coming blitz, or you may give a different look up front. So the offensive line is having to do different things, whereas the defense, they know what they're doing. They just go out there and execute. So it certainly is normal, but in a way, the offense sort of plays reactionary when it comes to some of these fall practices.
Not even just in college. I think in the NFL too. I mean, you look at, there was a preseason practice, joint practice the other day with the Giants and the Dolphins. It was either today or yesterday, I can't remember, but they were asking Malik Willis about it afterwards, and he said, "Look, we kind of had our set plays that we were going to roll." He's like, "It's not like we game planned for these guys." Yeah, it's a little different. The pass protection wasn't holding up quite as well. You can't always gauge what you see in these preseason scrimmages or practices and assume that that's going to translate out on the field. Sometimes it does. And look, sometimes you don't know what you're going to get out of a certain player until you get them out there in a real game situation. Some guys are terrible practice players, and they go out in a game and they dominate. That was you, right, Pat?
Oh, that was for sure me. Mainly Nick, because I didn't practice a whole lot. I was always kind of rehabbing some kind of an injury and hoping to get out there on the field. But yeah, I mean, some dudes are just gamers. The lights come on, and it's like, okay, now it's time to shine.
Well, Flames do feel pretty good about where their defense is at this point, just how hard they're playing, how much they're rallying to the ball. And they have some pass rushers. We talked about Michael Floyd, I think, has the potential to be one of those game record type guys. Watched a little bit of him in practice. He certainly shows that. And because of the effort and the energy they play with, and Coach Chadwell mentioned this the other day, they can maybe get away with some mistakes because of that. Which I think tends to be the case on defense. If you break one thing on defense, it doesn't always get exposed, if you bust a coverage or something like that. Whereas on offense, you mess up one thing, the whole play's shot usually. So it'll be interesting to see how that continues to unfold. Hopefully get an idea of who some of the playmakers are going to be here over the next week or so, trying to stay healthy as well. How hard is it at this point in camp where you want to go game speed and have an idea of what you have, but you're also trying to stay healthy?
Nick, correction. The coaches want you to go game speed at this point in camp, because in camp, the players are like, oh my gosh, another rep, another team period. Just get me out of this alive. No, it's a good question. You do kind of have to balance it. And it honestly kind of speaks now to more of the sports science side of things, where you're rehabbing your body really well after the fact. You're taking care of yourself. You're hitting your rehab. You're getting the proper amount of sleep, which it sounds like a crazy thing to have to really emphasize, but it's all very real things that, taking care of your body. You're in the home stretch. Like, can I get through the last week and a half of this?
Talked about top 25 voting. Liberty and JMU, 2 of 10 group of 6 teams to get votes. No group of 6 team was ranked in the preseason poll. Kind of not surprised by that. Now, all that to say, though, Pat, this preseason poll, especially now with the transfer portal and the era that we're in, it's really just fodder for shows just like this, right? I mean, who knows where teams are going to end up. I know you and I talked about it a little bit. I thought it'd be fun to look at this and just kind of give our take, who might have been a little underrated, overrated, and who may not even finish in the top 25. The first thing that stood out to me when I looked at the top 25, although Texas comes in at number 5, I think they're a little bit underrated. And that's because of the pieces that they added on offense. They got deeper at receiver. They got deeper at running back. Arch Manning's a year older, and I think that might be actually kind of what's keeping some of the media from maybe jumping on Texas, is just that, they had the Arch Manning hype train, Heisman train running this time last year, and he didn't live up to it. I mean, they had a good year. They went 10-3, but Arch Manning wasn't who they thought he was going to be. So maybe there's a little skepticism around that. Personally, I think Texas should probably win 11 games this year.
It's going to be interesting, and I think we're going to certainly find out a lot about that Texas team. Is it week 1 again when they play Ohio State? It's whatever it is. It's early in the year, so we're going to see. For me, though, I think being ranked too high, and again, not just because I'm an LSU, born and raised fan, I think Ole Miss I think they were 6 or 7, maybe it was 9.
Ninth.
That feels high to me for a team that lost their head coach, their offensive coordinator, and what were they known for last year? Their offense. They were able to put points on the board, 35.
Yeah, Trinidad Chambliss back though.
Agreed. So you have the players that are back, but you also lost 2 really big pieces of that offense, being your head coach and your play caller. So I think they're maybe a little too high. I was surprised by Texas Tech as well. You lose Sorsby with the whole gambling thing. So you lose your presumed starting quarterback. You lost some talent to the draft as well. So I thought Texas Tech was ranked pretty high too.
I think Oklahoma at 10 is going to be really tough to maintain. I mean, after UTEP in week 1, they go to Michigan. They go to Georgia in week 4. They got Red River with Texas 2 weeks after that. That's a pretty brutal stretch there for the first half of the season for the Sooners. And I know John Mateer is, bench pressing cars now, apparently, based on some of these photos we've seen online. But, man, I don't know. Do you think Oklahoma can finish top 10 or even, top 20?
I do not think they'll finish top 10. I do think they can finish top 20. They have a very talented roster. Obviously, you're returning your coach, returning your quarterback, who presumably should be healthy throughout the year, which he was not last year. So I do think they can. They have a terribly hard schedule. On that note, another hard schedule that I think a team that's not going to finish top 25 is Michigan. They play number 10 Oklahoma, number 22 Iowa, number 18 Penn State, number 6 Indiana, former national champion, number 2 Oregon, and number 1 Ohio State.
Speaking of Indiana, what in the world? 6th? They were 16-0 last year, and I know that they lost their quarterback, but that's about it. They got a really good team coming back.
I was interested to see that the 2 teams in the national championship were ranked, I think, number 6 and number 7 in the country. And you said it. Yeah, you lose talent, but a lot of these programs are just reloading, especially with the portal as it is now. I don't think they play an overly difficult schedule at all. So them being at 6, I found interesting too.
Yeah, we'll see how it shakes out, but just some early hot takes on the top 25. For now, though, let's get into the mailbag here and get into some of your questions as we bring it back to Flames football here. And I thought there were some good ones this week. There were a couple that I want to get into, but not today. Some of it was talking about NIL and merchandise. I'm going to give that one another week because I want to have a little bit better answer, better take on it. But let's get into some of these others. First from Roy. What's the probability we see Jake Davis at some point this year? Getting a lot of great coverage. I know he's just a freshman, but there's a lot of hype around him. Yeah, Roy, I think to your point, I think there's a really decent to good chance that we see him get some meaningful snaps in a football game this year.
I think so too. When you combine the fact that you don't know who your quarterback's going to be right now, when you think a little bit about the transfer portal, and then when you think about you no longer have to factor in, we don't want to burn this guy's red shirt, there's no reason not to get talent out on the field to see how they perform. So I think there's a really good chance he gets out there.
Move on to, and I'm not even sure how to say this, starts with number 5. These are their X handles, Twitter handles. Solas Pastor JT. We'll go with that. Is this JMU game the most important season opener in LU football history? And how I would answer that actually goes to, it depends. Are we looking at it through the lens of the outcome of the game? Because that's how we kind of have to look at everything before this year. We already know what the outcome was and what the ramifications, what the fallout was after that, right? So we're trying to grade that now. Can we really grade it now, or do we have to wait until after the game's played?
Nick, we sort of had a similar thought process on this question, but I took it are you asking Liberty Flame fans or are you asking the players? Is it the most important game? Because from a fan perspective, it's a pretty important game. You lose this opener, you have now lost 5 in a row, dating back to last year, after 2 separate 4-game losing streaks last year. You want to get this fan base bought in early in the season. It would do a lot in terms of momentum, in terms of positivity throughout the fan base to knock off JMU, who you've historically struggled against. I think it's a hugely important game. From a player perspective, no, it's not going to define your season. You can drop that first game and you still have everything out in front of you, but it's a big game, man. As a fan, I say, yeah, it's pretty massive. As a player, it's going to be, you know what, we play week 1 and we don't think about week 2 until we're done with week 1.
I go back to that 2019 game against Syracuse when they came to Williams Stadium, and that was about as much hype around a season opener as I can remember, just because it was the first time you were getting a Power 4 opponent in here. It was the first game for head coach Hugh Freeze, albeit from a hospital bed in the press box. But there was just a lot of excitement around that team. First year being bowl eligible, having a chance to play to go to a bowl game. You had Buckshot Calvert back. You had Antonio Gandy Golden back. There was a lot of hype around that game, and I know it didn't turn out well for the Flames. They got shut out that day. But there was a play down inside the red zone, I think maybe to AGG, where he made a catch, and this place was sold out. It was thunder. It's as loud as I've ever heard Williams Stadium. And that was a really, really big moment. Now, again, are we looking at it through the lens of how did the game turn out? Or are we looking at it from the lens of what was the feeling going into the game? You know, that might shape the question. But I do think this is a big game for the Flames to open the season. One of the bigger ones in recent memory. I'll stand by that Syracuse preseason hype there. I think even the one going into Baylor, certainly when you look at the outcome again, and the Flames winning that game at Baylor. But the preseason hype around this one's pretty significant, and I think it kind of goes into what you're saying. You want to be able to get the narrative back in your favor after the way that last year went, the way that last year particularly ended, and you've got a chance to really change the feel externally or internally, I don't know, of where this program is right now and get things moving down the tracks pretty quick. Now, again, to your point, even if you lose this game, I don't think that it's not like you can't get that back, but you can get it back in a hurry if you win this game. And I think that's the point right now for all the reasons we've already talked about as far as why this is a big game. But is it the biggest season opener in school history? I don't know. I don't know what lens you're looking through on that. Sounds like a cop-out answer.
No, I mean, let's look at it from this perspective. How many times has Liberty opened the season playing against a college football playoff team? I mean,
how many college football playoffs have there been?
It doesn't matter. It's all in framing, right? So we can say, hey, we kicked off our season beating the team that went to the CFP last year. We can be that team this year.
And Liberty's trying to win 2 in a row at Bridgeforth Stadium. Last time they were up there, FCS playoffs in 2014, right?
Shout out Dakota Kelly. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. He, man, it really does. Now that I'm like thinking more through the logistics of this game, there's a lot that you could chalk up and get yourself right back on track, similar to the Hugh Freeze years where we want to run the state of Virginia. We want to dominate the recruiting battle. It could do a lot for you by winning this game.
Yeah, no doubt. Back to the mailbag. Let's get to Michael. He always has good questions, good thoughts for our program. Appreciate it. Appears our defense should improve. I'm in hopes our red zone touchdown percentage goes up instead of down. I think we all are. We all felt the drop last year, and the stats prove it out. How about our kicking game, punting, field goal? He wants to talk special teams, kickoffs. Are we just that unsure, or do we have guys this year? Thanks, Michael. We always love talking special teams around here. I was actually out at practice the other day chatting a little bit with Dylan Llewellyn, special teams coordinator. You know, the most interesting part of special teams for me this year, Pat, is the fact that the Flames have a guy who could be both their kicker and their punter. Chase Reeves, 6'2", 190-pounder, transfer from McKendree University, non-Division I. This is his 6th and final year, we think. Depends on how you look at it through today's college football. You know, we're already talking about NFL players trying to come back and play in college. But a guy that could do both. He could, we've seen it in practice. He can boom the punts. Field goal kicking, not just from Reeves, but I think across the board in practice has been a little bit inconsistent. That's not what fans want to hear right now, but that's where it is. But how unique would that be, Pat? I mean, have a guy coming out there kicking field goals, kickoffs, and punting. Make it a lot easier on guys like Alan York with their spotting boards, right?
That's fair. I would prefer to not see him punting at all and just doing kickoffs and extra points. I mean, that would be a perfect scenario. But yeah, I mean, it certainly would be interesting. I don't remember the last time Liberty ever had a guy that kicked and punted. I'm sure there's somebody, but
yeah, no one's coming to mind right now. They would all tell you that they can do both, but interesting thing about it. I spent a little bit of time with Chase last week. Interesting thing about him, he's actually got a pretty rare heart condition. He's had several surgeries throughout his life. Most recently, January of 2025. And I don't remember the name of what this is, but it's a heart defect, I guess. But he had surgery in January 2025. He said, I should be good for another 8 to 10 years. And I'm just like, man, I can't imagine living life that way. Like, kudos to him. Just taking it in stride. And he's had himself a pretty extensive collegiate career. Like I said, coming in from McKendree and now to Liberty and, from Illinois. Also played soccer growing up, loves playing golf. Just a guy that's full of life, and you want to root for him.
Nick, I'm not going to lie. This sounds like an Emily Austin story in the making for during football season. She's going to be all over that.
You would think so. You would think if the Flame Central, if not Emily, somebody from Flame Central will be all over this for sure. Carson Jones, a true freshman, also in the mix. They added a walk-on in Dinwiddie, who's in the mix. Long story short, Michael, I don't think it's been decided yet who's going to be kicking, but you could have your kicker and your punter be the same guy. The return game, you lose Juju Gray, but he wasn't, unfortunately, because of injuries, Pat. I don't think he was ever really the factor in the return game that we had hoped. But the return game, you would hope to get a little bit more out of that this year, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, I remember being so high on him coming from NC State. I think he had garnered some preseason awards or postseason awards from the ACC, had a couple preseason awards as he came to Liberty. But yeah, I mean, this is certainly, as much as we've talked about, the stable of running backs in the backfield. I'm curious to really see how this return game shakes out. Is there a receiver back there? Do you have a DB back there? Is it a running back? It feels largely, and maybe Llewellyn, from your conversation with them, they're further ahead, but it feels like there are certainly some question marks as it relates to some of these bigger positions on special teams.
Yeah, we'll figure all that out here, hopefully after this practice or the scrimmage coming up here this weekend as well. And from John McLaughlin wants to know what position group is most important for success this season. John, I think for me that's an easy one. For me, it's the running back core. And we talked about it, I think, on the first podcast we did in fall camp. You can talk about starting quarterbacks all day, and they're important, but for this team to have success, they got to get back to running the football at a high rate. You cannot average less than 200 yards rushing in per game this year. You just can't. The way that this offense thrives and works, and I don't think they will. I think they're going to soar past 200 yards rushing per game, maybe 250 plus if all things are going well. This is a team that certainly has it in there. We've talked about the stable of backs. For me, it's the running back position. How well they perform, there's going to be a lot of other dominoes that fall off of that. Your play action, your one-on-one matchups, your explosive plays down the field, all predicated by your run game. Your defense, right? How long they have to be on the field or don't have to be on the field, how fresh they are, things like sack numbers. All of that, to me, is predicated off of what this running back group does.
Yeah, Nick, I can appreciate that. I think I will, about 4 yards ahead of that, I will pick the unit. I think the offensive line, that makes the biggest difference. I think they will set up the success of the running game. And then to kind of piggyback with another question mark, we talked a lot about quarterback. I think a solid offensive line can go a long way in terms of protecting number one, your quarterback, but also kind of alleviate some of the pressure, especially on a guy that Flames don't have a guy yet. So you're kind of going into this season, a little unknown. So I think they can certainly make life easier from a quarterback perspective. And I think you're going to have that. And then you hit on something just a minute ago. I think they will then go a long way in helping open up some of those explosive plays that we really have been lacking the last couple of years. Whether it's giving yourself one-on-one matchups outside because they have to load the box. Defenses are going to have to load the box to try and stop a potent run game. Or to your point, maybe the offensive line is dominating so much that you are running for 250, 260, 270 in a game. So I think your answer and my answer, they marry well together, like a good offensive line does.
Yeah. And there's good talent up on the offensive line this year. DJ Geth has been somewhat of a Swiss Army knife. They can move him around from guard. I've seen him play some left tackle and scrim and practice. I mean, Aaron Fenimore at center, to have a guy like that back that's a 3-year starter now. I like what they have up front. Now the depth piece, that's maybe something that hopefully doesn't get tested too much. We saw that last year. Immediately they got tested with some injuries early in the season. That's going to be the biggest key, I think, is just how healthy can that unit stay throughout the course of the year. So we appreciate the questions from the mailbag. Still left some laying out there. Like I said, we'll try to get to some of those next week. I'd really like to. Also want to remind you that coming up here this Saturday, we mentioned the scrimmage. That'll be in the morning. Well, in the afternoon, we've got our Meet the Team, Get Inside Liberty football event. That will be kicking off at 1 o'clock at Williams Stadium in the indoor practice facility here in Lynchburg. Come on out. Admission is absolutely free. Lots of cool things happening. You'll hear from head coach Jamie Chadwell. You'll hear from athletics director Ian McCaw. Also, you'll get a chance to meet the players. Should note that this is a dead period for the coaches. So Coach Chadwell is not avoiding talking to you fans, but in the event that someone is a recruitable student athlete, you can't talk to them. Unfortunately, I don't think that Coach is going to be meeting with fans necessarily because of that, NCAA rules. But a chance to meet the players, get autographs there with the team, photos. Actually, there's going to be a team talent competition as well, I understand, a talent showcase, if you will. Pat, if you had to do a talent show, what would be your talent?
Ooh, that's tough. I used to play piano growing up, so that would be
chopsticks.
Yeah, of course. A little Beethoven, a little Chopin.
Yeah.
So possibly playing the piano. Other than that, I don't know. That's what I'll lean on. What would yours be?
Man, I don't know. I'm not a singer. Definitely not a dancer. I don't know. I put you on the spot, but I really don't know. I don't know what I'd throw out there.
I guess another talent that I have is I have a pretty good ability to 3-putt on the golf course, which for those that are not golfers, you don't want to do that. But I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I am too. So maybe they can get us a little putting green up there or something. I don't know. But that's all coming up this Saturday. Again, admission absolutely free, games for kids. Tour, and this is a big piece of it that I failed to mention, but it's a tour of the stadium, the club level, the locker room for the team. That's all this Saturday, 1 o'clock, Williams Stadium in Lynchburg. Food trucks as well. That's the only thing that's not free. If you want food, you do have to pay for it, but we'll have lots of food truck options there for you. So come on out, get acquainted with the Flames this Saturday, August the 22nd at Williams Stadium in Lynchburg. Well, that will bring a wrap to another show, and appreciate you stopping by. As always, hit that follow button, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. The Liberty Flames podcast, powered by Rogers Heating and Cooling. For Pat Kelly, I'm Nick Pierce. We'll be back with you again next week, folks.
You've been listening to Double Coverage with Nick Pierce and Pat Kelly. Hit the subscribe button and listen each week to this and all podcasts on the Liberty Flames podcast channel from Van Wagner on the Liberty Flames Sports Network.